The Trail of Tears was one of the darkest chapters in American history. It refers to the forced removal of the Cherokee and several other Native American tribes, including the Creek, Chickasaw, Choctaw, and Seminole, from their ancestral homelands in the southeastern United States to lands west of the Mississippi River. The roots of this tragedy began with the Indian Removal Act of 1830, signed by President Andrew Jackson. The law gave the U.S. government power to exchange native-held lands east of the Mississippi for unsettled lands to the west, in present-day Oklahoma. At first, many Americans believed this was a fair trade, but for the native tribes, it was a devastating loss. The Cherokee Nation, one of the most advanced and organized tribes, had their own written language, constitution, and schools. They wanted peace, not war. In 1832, the Cherokee took their case to the U.S. Supreme Court in Worcester v. Georgia, where the court ruled in their favor, recognizing the Cherokee as a sovereign nation. However, President Jackson allegedly replied, "John Marshall has made his decision. Now let him enforce it." The federal government ignored the ruling, and pressure on the Cherokee grew stronger each year. By the late 1830s, thousands of white settlers were pushing into Cherokee territory, eager for farmland and gold found in Georgia. Under enormous pressure, a small group of Cherokee leaders signed the Treaty of New Echota in 1835, agreeing to give up all Cherokee land east of the Mississippi in exchange for $5 million in land in the West. But the majority of the Cherokee people rejected the treaty. They never gave their consent, yet the U.S. government treated it as legal. The stage was set for removal. In May 1838, U.S. troops under General Winfield Scott arrived in Cherokee territory to enforce the removal. Thousands of Cherokee men, women, and children were rounded up from their homes, often at gunpoint, and forced into crowded stockades, like prisoners. Families were separated. People were not allowed to gather their belongings or say goodbye to their homes. The soldiers burned villages, looted houses, and destroyed crops. Over 16,000 Cherokee were imprisoned in these camps during the hot summer months. When the march began in the fall of 1838, the suffering intensified. The journey covered more than 1,200 miles, stretching through Tennessee, Kentucky, Illinois, Missouri, and Arkansas before reaching Indian Territory, present-day Oklahoma. The Cherokee traveled mostly on foot under harsh weather conditions. Many had little clothing or food. Disease spread rapidly through the camps. Dysentery, pneumonia, and cholera claimed countless lives. Elderly people, infants, and pregnant women struggled to survive. The Army offered little medical care, and supplies were scarce. Some reports say that as many as 4,000 Cherokee, about 1/4 of their entire population, died on the way. The survivors later called it Nuna Daoud Suni, or the Trail Where They Cried. To the American public, it became known as the Trail of Tears. By March 1839, the survivors finally reached Indian Territory. Exhausted, starving, and heartbroken, they arrived to find little preparation for their new homes. The land was strange and difficult to farm, and many continued to die from illness and hunger after the march ended. The Cherokee tried to rebuild their nation. They reorganized their government and established Tahlequah as their new capital. Yet, deep divisions remained, especially toward the leaders who had signed the Treaty of New Echota. In the years that followed, several of those men were assassinated by other Cherokee as punishment for what was seen as betrayal. The Trail of Tears was not just one event. It was part of a larger campaign of forced relocation that affected nearly 100,000 Native Americans from various tribes, each suffered similar fates of loss, death, and cultural destruction. Despite everything, Native peoples showed remarkable resilience. They preserved their language, traditions, and spiritual identity. Today, the Trail of Tears stands as a symbol of both tragedy and endurance, a reminder of the consequences of greed, prejudice, and injustice. Every year, descendants of the survivors honor their ancestors by retracing parts of the trail and telling their stories. Through remembrance, the pain of the past becomes a lesson for future generations, to ensure that such a trail of sorrow is never walked again.